Hello and welcome to I'll Knit If I Want To. I'm Andrea Mowry of Drea Renee Knits, and this is a little weekly podcast where I try my best to answer your questions. Today I am wearing the same things I've been wearing the past couple weeks. I've just had these in rotation lately. DRK everyday sweater and a Harlow hat. It just felt right. I just got up and got dressed and was like, I had a moment of, ooh, I've really been wearing these in quite a few videos. Should I change? And then I was like, let's just go real life. So this is what I put on today. It is a torrential downpour out there, and I did go for my walk, but there was no knitting on today's walk. And there was actually a lot of me talking to myself right out loud as my umbrella flipped inside out about 800 times. I had a raincoat on, but I also had a backpack on. I was trying to keep it dry. And lesson is, I need a better umbrella. But here I am, and thankfully I stayed pretty darn cozy in my outfit today. And here we are to talk about knitting. And a new challenge that I'm excited to chat about. Speaking of challenges, today is cast on day. Oh, but you're not going to be watching this today. So you're watching this 2 days in to the knit along. But for me, today's cast on day for the Totally Tessellated knit along. For you, hopefully you are participating and you've already got your socks on the needles, but if you don't, it's not too late. Come join the fun. We are knitting the Totally Tessellated, which I was going to wear, but you can't see my feet in these videos, so I thought, I'll just keep these handy. I don't know about y'all and your schools, but my kiddos have today off. They have all day off today. So we might be hearing some background noise today. Hopefully it's the good kind of giggle background noise. We will cross our fingers on that one. All right, let's jump into some questions. Question number 1. I would like to cast on for your Birch pullover. When checking the half fisherman's rib instructions, I realized there is much more purling than knitting, if I am not mistaken. Do you think that it would be a good idea to knit the pullover wrong side out to knit more than purl? So, I really didn't think this one through before I got started. So what I was gonna say is you could definitely try it. Dang. So in my head, I was just like, yeah, you can try it. You'll just have to be really careful with your shaping, because that means you're gonna have to do your shaping differently, because you wanna have, I don't know if y'all, I don't know if my headphones pick up their noise, but they've definitely, they were down in our family room, and it sounds like they have made it up to their bedrooms, which are below my studio. So anyways, back to the Birch. So that shaping needs to remain. You want those really nice raglan columns, so you would have to be comfortable modifying those increases so that those turn out the right way. And so keep that in mind. I'm just trying to think in my brain. Yeah, I would say give it a try, practice it on a swatch, and if you really don't want to do all that purling, maybe consider the Stria cardigan because that cardigan's knit flat. So that's the gift of half fisherman's rib, is when you knit it flat, you barely do any purling because you knit on those wrong side rows. And Stria cardigan, inclinations cowl, and the inclination shawl all use that half fisherman's rib knit flat, and so it's kind of a delight on those wrong side rows. So that would be an option if you're open to a cardigan instead of a pullover, and then you wouldn't be doing all those purls. But yeah, I think just trying to knit it inside out might be a little tricky. In my head, I was like, you could try it, but now I'm thinking about the actual construction of it, and I'm like, what would that mean? So you would definitely want to think about it. And with the short rows, you're gonna have to figure out those short rows on your own, which could be a little bit tricky. It really depends on how comfortable you are with half fisherman's rib and with modifications. So if you are up for the challenge and you just wanna give it a try, the good news is if you get into it and you're like, nope, this is stealing my joy trying to rework this, you can tear it on out, rewind that yarn up, and try it again the way it was written. But if you do try it and it works, let us know how it goes. Next question is on the LYS, and I have been seeing LYS pop up everywhere. So LYS is my little yellow sweater cardigan, which it was actually on my mind to wear today, and then I forgot. And this one was sitting right there in front of me, and I was like, looks great, let's put it on our body. But LYS, I've just seen it popping up everywhere. I think mostly in thanks to Amy from La Bien Aimée, so thanks Amy. It's one of hers that she wears all the time. I designed it with her yarn. And so back to the question. I am currently starting your sweater pattern LYS, and I have decided to make it a bit larger because I'd be happier with a bit more ease. The pattern calls for -2 to +2 inches of ease. So I always love to recap on ease because I do know it's one that a lot of people are like, I just don't understand it. So ease. Basically, what we're talking about when we talk about ease, I gave a range of -2 inches to +2 inches. So that would be -5 centimeters to +5 centimeters. So what we're talking about is taking your chest measurement of your body, ideally over whichever bra and or shirts, whatever undergarments you would wear under your sweater, if any. But most of us want a little something beyond just that wool. But some of us, you know, are pretty hardy and are just fine. I digress. So take the measurement of your chest, and then you would either subtract that 2 inches or add that 2 inches to your measurement, and that's kind of the range you're looking in. So we'll use my measurement at 35 inches. So I would do between 33 inches and 37 inches. I would look at the pattern. I feel like this is just not coming out as smoothly as I would like it. We're gonna keep going. So I would look at the pattern and I would look at the finished measurements. The finished measurements you see in the pattern are the finished measurements of the sweater itself. So I wanna look and see, okay, which sizes fall within that range for me between 33 inches and 37 inches. Unfortunately, my math is not that quick to tell you the centimeters right off the top of my head. But so that's what I would look at, and I'd be like, oh, okay, these are the sizes I can pick from, or the size that's closest to one of those numbers or within that range, because we're looking at a range. And then you have to think about that range. Okay, well, I tend to prefer some negative ease or positive ease. Like, you can decide within that range what you feel best with. And this knitter deciding that they actually want more than the recommendation is fine, especially when it's something like, I'm gonna, spoiler alert, jump ahead, and they're gonna choose a size that is actually 4 inches of positive ease for them. And so that's great. That is not so far outside of the recommended ease that I think it would cause a lot of issues. It's just 2 inches more. And then that's wonderful that they know that that's what's going to be more comfortable for them, especially if you want to maybe layer certain things underneath your sweaters. You might want a little more positive ease. Back to the question. I am making the size 3, which is a 38 bust, which will give me 4 inches of ease. My question is, what do I do for the sleeves? I usually go up 1 needle size for sleeves on a sweater pattern, but should I do that for this pattern? Since the body is knit flat, will my gauge change for the sleeves? Yes, and possibly even more than they would change if you had knit the body in the round. When we go from knitting flat to in the round, our gauge is looser flat than it is in the round, because when we work in the round, we're doing the same thing every round. We're knitting every round. When we work flat, we knit a row, purl a row, knit a row, purl a row, and pretty much all of us knit our purls a bit looser than our knits. So that gives us a little bit of a looser fabric, a different gauge than when we knit in the round. So your gauge probably will still be different. And they say, I think so. But since I am making it with more ease than you recommend, will the sleeves already be larger? So yeah, I mean, the sleeves are going to correlate to the size you are knitting. So what I would do is I would go look at the schematic, which is typically for my patterns, it's on the second to last page of the pattern. And I would look at the upper arm circumference that's listed in the schematic and decide if you would like that size on you. LYS does have some pretty slim fit sleeves, so I don't think that you're going to need to adjust. If you want to make sure they stay slim fit even with going up a size, then I would just maybe stick with the same needle that you used for the body of the cardigan and not change needle sizes. Yeah, instead of going up a needle size, and that's probably going to make them a little bit slimmer since your gauge probably will tighten up. But I also think you would be fine doing what you usually do in maintaining gauge to have the sleeves turn out the dimension that we're trying to get them to turn out in your pattern, because it's going to work well with the body of the cardigan, and I don't think that they will be too big on you or anything when you're only going up that little extra bit. So the choice is yours. If you really are like, oh no, I love a slim sleeve, go ahead and just stay at the needle size you used for the body. If you're like, oh, my gauge tightens up quite a bit when I do a small circumference and I want them to actually be what the pattern calls for, then I would do whatever you need to do to maintain gauge, which could be going up a needle size. That's a great question. All right. Question number 3. I started the big cozy sweater during the March to May knit along, and I'm determined to wear it this winter. I'm using an upcycled alpaca blend from Knit Picks that is 33% alpaca, 34% wool, and 33% acrylic. I made a 6-inch blocked swatch and achieved gauge. I just finished and blocked the body, and to my horror, it is 6 inches too wide. I might have finished it by May if I were not making it so big. I tried squishing it to size when I pinned it out to dry, but this was the best I could do. I can't bear to tear it out and start again, and I'm sure that if I stuck with the current measurements, it would move from cozy to sloppy. What would you do in the situation? I decided to fold in each side by 3 inches and do the mattress stitch on the folded seams. I will be using my sewing machine to reinforce the knitting and then cut off the extra. But I'm curious to know what other options would have been. So I love what you're doing. I think that's great. I'm curious, it sounds like it only grew widthwise and not lengthwise. So that's great that you're only dealing with it on the edges. If you didn't want to reinforce both sides, you could just fold the 6 inches in on one side, so you're only cutting and reinforcing one area. I love your bravery. I think it's wonderful, and I would do the same thing. One thing I'm gonna just put a little bug in your ear about is you did try squishing it to size when you pinned it out. So what I'm wondering is, what I don't want to have happen is, now that you're going through the effort of reinforcing and cutting off the extra fabric, when you wear it, I don't want it to stretch on you. So I'm wondering how much you did the smush and pat to make that work, just because it is a bigger cardigan and gravity could play a role over time, especially if your yarn is already prone to growing, which I think it is, because you did that large swatch, and I think it's the alpaca. That's my guess. I haven't used that yarn, but wool and acrylic, I haven't used acrylic in a long time. And if I'm being totally honest, those are kind of my pre-blocking days. The horror. I was not great about blocking back in the day. Now I block everything. I love the blocking process and the magic it creates. But I feel like it doesn't usually grow too much. Maybe it depends on the yarn, but my intuition tells me that the troublemaker in that blend is the alpaca, which is probably also making it like soft and delightful. But I'm just wondering if having it be a third of that yarn, if that's what's causing your growth, because that's definitely what I have found. The nice thing about like the Surrey alpaca and the collar, I don't know what you're choosing to use for your collar, but that is stabilized to an extent by its silk core because it's that brushed fuzzy alpaca. That core doesn't stretch like just plain old alpaca yarn. Anyways, so there's a little voice in my head saying maybe you should block it once more and just block it however it wants to, just lay it flat to dry and kind of see, does it grow even more? And then do your surgery by cutting off the excess. So again, you could just cut off of one side, only reinforce one side. And I think, then you just don't have to do it twice, which would be kind of nice. But I really think that you've come up with a great solution because unfortunately it sounds like it grew in the direction where you can't just unravel and tear back the few extra inches because it's on this side that it grew too much, not this side. But yeah, let us know how it goes. I hope that you have success with the sweater surgery, and I love that you are just getting in there. Steeking's fun. Maybe not when you're forced to do it. But it's something I think everyone should try. So, okay. Question number 4. Darn, I was thinking that this is gonna be so great because I was like, oh, it's the day that the knit along starts, and now I'm gonna answer this totally desolated question, and it'll be so great, forgetting that this doesn't go out till Friday. So hopefully it's still helpful. All right, I think it will be. It'll be helpful for future people, at least. I hope. So I am excited to join in on the totally tessellated knit along and have been working on my swatch in the round. I'm loving the addictive pattern so much. I'm using the magic loop method and having a problem with the color changes when we slip the first 2 stitches on rounds 5 and 6. I seem to be pulling the yarn too tight when I transition to my main color in round 1 after completing 5 and 6 because I'm not seeing my main color between row 6 and 1. My beginning of round just looks like a mess of tight blocks of color C. Any tips on how to maintain proper tension when changing colors at the beginning of the round? We don't have to catch any float, so I'm wondering if, besides pulling too hard, if I'm also not dropping and catching the next color properly. The rest of my sock swatch looks great. It's just the beginning of the round that looks a hot mess. I'm so glad I'm swatching. So here's my sock, and I'm gonna show you. Ooh la la. This side, you probably can see my beginning of round. Doot, 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 doot. But if you weren't looking for it, you wouldn't really notice it. Like when you look up close, whoop, there it is. Hey, it's like it's following my voice. Talk to me like lovers do. Okay, so it's just the nature of the beast. Especially with mosaic knitting. I mean, it's funny because I can actually see it better in the reflection of the camera than I can when I'm just see this part? When I'm just looking at that straight on, it looks pretty seamless. But when I look at the whole thing, I'm like, oh, okay, I can see my beginning of round. So it's just the way it's gonna be. When we work in the round, we're actually working on a spiral. And it's gonna have a little bit of a jog, especially because we are doing Mosaic and we are slipping that stitch, but when all is said and done, I think that it blocks out well. And when you're wearing it, I mean, if it really bothers you, just keep the beginning of round on your inside ankle, you know, let this side face out to the world. But honestly, I think with blocking and when you're wearing it, it doesn't bother me to a huge extent, but you can absolutely work on loosening up your tension for when you are jumping that gap in magic loop. And so my best tip for that is to make sure that you actually pull that tension on the second stitch in instead of the first stitch in, and that will help you from overdoing it, and keep that jog and that's par for the course when you're working magic loop. Focus on keeping the second stitch in from your needle tip tight, not so much the first. The first tends to exasperate if you have any laddering or anything going on. As far as tensioning color work in magic loop, I actually have a video for this. It is for stranded color work. Tensioning magic loop. Okay. But same idea. What I like to do is I always spread my stitches out on the needle in my right hand so that when I'm pulling my yarn, because it's attached to that side, right? So when I'm pulling my yarn over to my stitches on my left to knit one, it's really getting a nice stretch. So if you think about when you put that sock on, when it's on the wider part of your foot or your ankle, calf, etc., that's as far as it's going to be able to stretch, is as far as your floats go. So we don't want sloppy floats because that's really going to affect our tension, our gauge, etc. But you do want enough in there to have the movement of the sock so that it can expand and get over your foot. And so that place when we have to jump from over the gap of where like our loop usually hangs out for our needle, that is where people can struggle. And it's not my favorite part of magic looping when I am doing multiple colors. One thing you could try in the future is trying to use shorties, those little short circular needles, because then you can avoid this situation. Because you'll just be boop, boop, boop. There's no gaps to jump. But by stretching out all those stitches and then knitting the next one, it gives you what I like to think of as it kind of perfectly mirrors, or I don't like that. That's not really the right word. What's the word I want? I should just move on. It's not gonna come to me right now. But you know, it just acts as the same length that you need it to, as you would when it's stretched out. I mean, that was painful. Did that hurt you as bad as it hurt me? Oh my goodness. Anyways, I hope that helps, and I will link the video below. But also just I like to try not to overthink it. I do know a lot of people kind of get caught up in that point. I see questions, not even for myself, but for others. It's just something I hear coming up a lot, especially when people do a lot of like color work yokes. They really can't stand if there's any kind of jog in the yoke. But it is just kind of what it is. I bet that there's some really, really clever people out there who have figured out little tips and tricks to make it more minimal. I mean, I have a technique I like to use when knitting stripes, because I think in stripes it's really obvious. In color work, it tends to be a little more hidden because it's not so stark of a line. But anyways, you can also just let your hair down and not worry too much about it. But I will definitely link that video in hopes that helps a little bit. All right, hopefully this next one goes a little smoother. I was curious as to how you choose the order for colors in general and more specifically for the shift cowl. I have my colors picked out, but I can't figure out what order I should place them in. I chose Melancholia, Nostalgia, and Wololo, which is blue, burgundy, and blue-green. Nope, that's not what those are. So I've used all of those colors before. So I think of Melancholia, we're just gonna simplify this and say Melancholia is the blue, Nostalgia is kind of a purplish color, and Wololo is more multicolored. It's got some brown, orange, pink, etc. Melancholia is my favorite out of the three. Maybe I should put Wololo in the middle to break up Melancholia and Nostalgia. I'd love to hear how you decide your colors. So for me, when I did the shift cowl, I basically just put them in order from light to dark. All of mine had a blue color to them. So they were all kind of like bluish green, and there was a light, a medium, and a dark. It doesn't matter which end you start from, if you go light, medium, dark, or dark, medium, light. The good news is, whatever order you put them in, they all get playtime with each other. So the way that cowl works is they all get a section with one another. But I was just taking a little peek, and I think what I would recommend is, you said your favorite was Melancholia. I would love to see these actually pictured, all three next together to each other. Okay, I have 2 bits of advice. One bit is what I said first, which is you could try to put them in an order of light to dark. And as long as they're in that order, you're probably gonna be pretty safe. I know both Melancholia and Nostalgia can be on the dark side, and Wololo kinda can. But I could see you breaking it up. I kind of like your idea of having Wololo be the B, because it is, to me, Nostalgia and Melancholia are more tonals, where the Wololo is more a bit of both. So I do like that idea. But when I went and looked at my photos, what I see and what I wanted to mention is color B in the pattern really shines right here, kind of front and center. So if you could decide to pick, okay, the color that I like best, that I want near my face, that I love to wear, that I want to make sure I see, you can make that color B, because that is really going to have like a front and center place when you wear it. So that would be something to think about as well. So if Melancholia is really your favorite and you want to make sure it gets lots of playtime, you could think about letting it be B. That being said, if you want to have Wololo BB, then Melancholia is still it's gonna start the cowl and it ends the cowl. So it'll still get lots of playtime. It just kind of depends what you prefer. But I love that. I love, you mentioned in this question as well, which I didn't read this part, but how Wololo has little pops of color similar to both of the other colors you picked. And I just wanted to mention, because you would ask, like, how do I choose colors in general? Although you were more curious about color order. But that's also something I really look for when I'm picking colors, is I look for nuances in that skein to then help me pick the other colors I might choose. So I love it. It sounds like you did something kind of similar, or at least you found that complement within each other. And as far as choosing orders in general, it really depends what I'm trying to achieve. If I am trying to keep everything really homogeneous and kind of fade from one color to the next, that's what I'm looking for. No contrast. I'm looking at really trying to kind of melt from one color to the next. And if I'm doing something like stranded color work where I really want to see crisp definition, then I'll really look for contrast. And I might even use the black and white function on my phone for my camera so I can see if they have enough contrast. Because it's really interesting. One thing I learned when I started weaving was how you can have 2 colors that look totally like, they look completely different. You know, it's a pink and a brown, let's say. But then you take a picture of them and they look like almost the same gray. So if you knit those as stranded color work, you're gonna see the difference. They're 2 different colors, but they might just look really muddy and kind of dull and lifeless. And I didn't fully, I think, appreciate or understand that until I started doing more weaving, because that really changes how you play with color. Because when they're such a similar value, they can look kind of muddy. So anyways, I just found that so interesting. A lot of times when we see color work where we're like, ooh, what is making this work so well? What is so special? A lot of times it is that one has like a vibrancy to kind of lift something else up. I'm so in awe of some of the stranded color work knitters out there who are using solids, and they are using lots of different colors in a project, and how they come up with these palettes that just, they're so beautiful. I haven't done a ton of that, and I'm a little intimidated by it. But I could see how it would just be endlessly so much fun and so satisfying as you come up with different ones that work. And I bet the more you do it, the more you learn. Oh, okay, I know that like I need to lift these up with like this little guy. And anyways. All right, that is all of the questions. Wonderful. So we are smack dab in the middle of the totally tessellated knit along, and I hope that you have joined us, and it's not too late if you haven't. You have till Monday to finish those socks, and I'm going to go ahead and link the pattern and the Ravelry form below, as well as include the hashtag if you want to check it out on Instagram. Basically, we just try and knit a pair of socks over a long weekend. And this year it's really special because 15% of the pattern sales for the Totally Tessellated socks is going to support Sisters United. And that will go through the end of the knit along, which is November 27th. And same for yarn bundles. So if there's any left, you can still go to either the Farmer's Daughter Fibers website or Spin Cycle's website. And they have totally tessellated yarn bundles that they curated, and they are also donating 15% of sales to those. So even if you want to go snag a yarn bundle and you're not going to be able to use it in time for the knit along challenge, that's okay. You can still go purchase one, and 15% of that sale will go towards a really, really great organization. Yeah, that's word. Woo. I apparently am ready for my afternoon coffee because I'm doubting my words. All right, I will of course include links for Harlow hat and my sweater today. And let's talk about another challenge. So as I have shared, I have been learning how to spin on a supported spindle and having so much fun. I feel like it's finally clicked for me. One of the things that has really helped is using Rolags. I just have to show you guys because they're so beautiful. So entertain yourself for just a minute while I grab them. Ba, 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 almost back. Okay. So I tried spinning just like strips of a bat that I prepped, and I've done a Rolag, and I've tried spinning comb top from onto my support spindle. And it's so funny because with each one I was like, oh, maybe this one feels best. Like I was really feeling the bat I had prepared until I tried Rolags, and now I'm simultaneously spinning the bat still on my other support spindle, and it's just not as easy. I'm actually thinking about turning that bat into Rolags and seeing if that helps. But I bought these absolutely amazingly beautiful they're so beautiful Rolags from Hikari Handmade. I love them. And so what I have found is these are some pretty nice size Rolags, and I can fit 2 on my support spindle comfortably. This support spindle, I think it says does that say 1 ounce? I think it's 1 ounce. So this is from Dan Tracy, and same person that I got my spindle kit from, which I'm going to talk about again in a minute because I'm loving it. But I can fit about 2 on here. It's not the lightest spindle in the world. So I find that 2 Rolags is about as far as I want to take it as far as how my hand feels from flicking. I do notice that with support spindle, I'm pinching in a way that is reminiscent of my pie crust making days as a baker. So I'm being very cautious in regards to the carpal tunnel I've had in the past and not overdoing it. But I kind of digress. Y'all, Siri is so rude and was just listening in for I don't know how long and just recording on my watch. Anyways, so let's get to the whole point of this chat. I showed some of my progress on my spin yesterday, and my friend Tashi, who also has a YouTube channel, which you should check out. I'm gonna go ahead and add that to the link below. So if you want another fun podcast to watch, I highly recommend Tashi's. But they wanted to join. And so I was chatting with my spinning friends, and it was my friend Amy who was like, I'm going to do a 100-day spinning challenge, and I'm going to spin 15 minutes a day on my support spindle. And I was like, I'm going to do it too. I'm joining you. And then our other friends were like, we'll do it too. So it occurred to me, like, maybe lots of people want to join us. So we've decided we are cordially inviting you to join our 100 days of spindle spinning. So you can spin on any spindle. I'm mainly focusing on the support because I just learned, but you can absolutely do drop spindle, Turkish or cross arm spindle, or, darn it, last time I said this, I had to look it up. Jalgan? I should have looked it up again. This kind of spindle. So any spindle you like, join us. We are going to go from December 1st to March 10th. And all we're doing is trying to spin for 15 minutes a day on our spindle. It could be 5 minutes in the morning, 5 in the afternoon, 5 at night. It can be 15 all in one go. You can be an overachiever and go for 30, whatever you want. But basically our goal is to spin every day for 15 minutes on our spindles. Is there anything else I want to tell you about that? Oh, probably the hashtag and stuff. So we are going to just do, the hashtag is going to be 100 days of spindle spinning. And you can use that over on Instagram. I know not everyone's on Instagram, so I also started a Ravelry forum in my Ravelry group. So you can come over there, especially those of us who want to get to know each other better and get a little chattier. I thought that would be a good spot. So I'll put the link in the hashtag below in the notes. And I will also show you my progress. So I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to spin over 100 days, but we did want a fresh start so that anybody who does want to join has a little bit of time to gather their spindle and their fiber, come up with a plan. But what I have been doing is, as I said, I can do about 2 row lags on here, and then I transfer them onto my little weaving bobbins. And using the spindle Kate has made it so easy to do that. I am going to, one of these days, I'm going to pull Spicy Pete up here and have him help me record a little video. But I basically pop this onto the spindle Kate. He actually calls it a multi-Kate. I'm just calling it a spindle Kate because that's what's in my head. But I pop this on there, and then my bobbin winder just happens to be right across from where that is. And so I just whoop, and I just wind it on to these little guys, and it just happens that like 2 row lags perfectly fill up. Come on, you silly focuser. These little bobbins. So here is my 3 I have so far, and I have 6 more to go. So I'll end up with 6 bobbins total. Now, I also wanted to show you, because it was so nice. So Dan Tracy actually emailed me after my last episode where I showed his multi-Kate, and this is what he came up with. And he did send me this as a gift, so thank you so much. This has been so fun to try out. Just so you know, I'm not gonna there's no commissions or money making or anything like that for me to show this, but I just was so tickled that I got to try it out that I wanted to show you guys. So this is what he's calling a spinner's delight. And as you might be able to guess, this sits on your lap. So I have been spinning, and this is why he sent me one, because he saw my little tiny dipping bowl. It's actually one of my dishes. So he saw me using that, and he was like, you should try this out and see what you think. So this just sits right on your lap, and I don't think you're gonna be able to see even if I tilt this. Sorry for the chair noise. So you just sit it in your lap, whee, and spin away. Pretty cool, right? And it's nice because with this spindle, my little cup was a little tricky because it was almost the same circumference as this whorl. So anyways, I tried it out today, and it has been a delight, as you might guess. So I just wanted to show that because it's been really fun to play with. All right, anything else that I'm forgetting to show or tell? I don't think so. And this is getting really long. If you have stuck with me, thank you. I appreciate you. And if you want to ask a question, you can find a link for that at the end of the show notes. You just click that, and I do ask that that is how you ask questions because it is the only place I pick questions from so that it just stays organized for me. It pops right into a Excel spreadsheet and keeps everything nice and tidy for me. And yeah, I hope that you have a lovely weekend. If you are looking for someone to give to, I would love to share with you the link to Sisters United. They are working really hard to try and raise $40,000 this month. That is their goal. So if you have the means to help them get there, I'll share that link below. There's all kinds of fun ways to help benefit them. And I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope to see you back here next week. If you want to know right when a new episode goes live, you can hit that subscribe button. We always appreciate if you hit the like button. And thank you. Thanks for coming back. If this was your first time, thanks for coming and staying to the end. I know this is a long one, but I appreciate you so much, and I hope to see you back here next week. Bye.